Beloved, listen to me carefully. Many people are tired not because life is heavy, but because they are carrying what God never asked them to carry. Many hearts are broken not because God failed, but because they relied on their own strength. Many destinies are delayed not because God is slow, but because trust is misplaced. Today, I stand before you to tell you a simple truth that has the power to change your life forever when you rely on God. He can change everything overnight. You may have been struggling for years. You may have prayed, fasted, cried, and waited. You may feel forgotten, overlooked, or abandoned. But hear this clearly. God does not work by your calendar. He works by His purpose. What you could not achieve in 10 years of labor, God can accomplish in one moment of divine intervention, one night, one encounter, one word from heaven, one touch of grace. We often rely on what we can see. We rely on our qualifications, our connections, our experience, our intelligence, our savings, our plans. When these things are strong, we feel confident. When they shake, our faith shakes. But true reliance on God begins where human ability ends. God does not compete with your strength. He waits for your surrender. As long as you say, I can manage, heaven is silent. But the moment you say, Lord, I cannot do this without you, God steps in. Many people want God's help, but they do not want God's control. They want Him to bless their plans instead of submitting to His will. They want Him to fix the situation without changing their heart. But reliance on God is not a backup plan. It is a lifestyle. It is not something you do only when trouble comes. It is how you live every day. It is waking up and saying, Lord, lead me. It is making decisions with prayer, not pressure. It is trusting God's wisdom above your feelings. Look at your life. How many battles did you fight that prayer could have won? How many tears did you cry that trust could have prevented? How many doors did you force open that God wanted to open at the right time? When you rely on yourself, you rush. When you rely on God, you wait. And waiting on God is never a waste of time. It is preparation for a greater testimony. There are people listening to me right now who have reached the end of themselves. You have tried everything you know. You have talked to everyone you can talk to. You have knocked on every door. And still, nothing has changed. Let me tell you something. This is not the end. This is the beginning, because when you reach the end of your strength, you are finally in the position to experience God's power. God specializes in sudden changes. He is the God of overnight miracles. One night, a prisoner becomes a prime minister. One night, a barren woman becomes a mother. One night, a forgotten man becomes a ruler. One night, a closed door becomes an open gate. The same God who changed situations in the past is still alive today. He has not lost His power. He has not changed His nature. What has changed is our level of trust. Sometimes God allows the night to be long so that when morning comes, the testimony will be undeniable. Sometimes He allows the pressure to increase so that when deliverance comes, the glory will belong to Him alone. If God did it slowly, people would say it was your effort. But when God does it overnight, no one can deny His hand. Stop limiting God with your expectations. Stop telling God how He should answer your prayer. Stop deciding in advance what your breakthrough should look like. God's ways are higher than your ways. What you see as delay may be divine alignment. What you see as rejection may be protection. What you see as loss may be preparation. Relying on God does not mean you will never face problems. It means problems will not have the final word. It means storms may come, but they will not sink you. It means challenges may rise, but they will not define you. When you rely on God, you rest even when the situation is noisy. You have peace even when answers are not yet visible. That peace is not ignorance, it is confidence in God's faithfulness. Many people want faith without surrender. They want miracles without obedience. They want blessings without relationship. But God is not moved by desperation alone. He is moved by trust. Trust is saying, Lord, even if I don't understand, I believe you are in control. Trust is saying, even if it doesn't happen the way I expect, I know you are good. Trust is handing God the pen and letting him write your story. There is someone here who has been crying silently. You smile in public, but you are bleeding inside. You pray, but your heart is tired. You believe, but doubts whisper at night. God sees you. He knows your pain. He knows the weight you carry. And he is saying to you today, give it to me, not tomorrow, not when you feel stronger. No, because the moment you release it, God receives it. When you rely on God, he fights battles you cannot fight. He speaks for you where your voice cannot reach. He opens doors that no man can shut. He rearranges circumstances in ways you could never plan. You may sleep, but God does not sleep. While you rest, he works. While you wait, he prepares. While you pray, he moves hearts. Do not measure God by how things look today. Measure him by who he is. Situations change. Feelings change. People change. But God remains the same. He is faithful when you are weak. He is present when you feel alone. He is powerful when you feel helpless. Some of you are standing at the edge of a breakthrough, but fear is holding you back. Fear of disappointment, fear of failure, fear of trusting again. But faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to trust God. Despite if you rely on God, even your mistakes will not destroy you. God can turn errors into lessons and pain into purpose. Let me tell you something important. God's timing is perfect. He is never early, never late. When he acts, it is always the right moment. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and say, if God had answered me earlier, I would not be where I am today. Trust the process. Trust the waiting. Trust the silence. God often works the most when he seems quiet. Relying on God also means letting go of control. Many of us want to help God. We want to assist him with our anxiety, our worry, our constant thinking. But worry is not preparation. It is distraction. Anxiety does not speed up answers. It weakens faith. When you rely on God, you stop panicking and start praying. You stop complaining and start believing. There are testimonies waiting to be born in this place. Testimonies of healing. Testimonies of restoration. Testimonies of breakthrough. Testimonies of favor. But every testimony begins with trust. Before God changes your situation, he often changes your heart. Before he changes what is around you, he changes what is within you. Do not give up now. Do not walk away now. Do not lose hope now. Your night may be dark, but morning is coming. Your situation may look impossible, but God specializes in impossibilities. What you cannot fix, God can transform. What you cannot restore, God can renew. What you cannot change, God can change overnight. I want you to understand this clearly. Reliance on God does not make you weak. It makes you strong. It does not mean you stop trying. It means you stop striving. It means you do your part and trust God with the rest. It means you walk in obedience and leave the outcome to him. Lift your heart, not just your hands. Open your spirit, not just your mouth. Tell God the truth. He is not afraid of your questions. He is not offended by your tears. He is drawn to sincerity. When you come to God as you are, He takes you and makes you what He wants you to be. Very soon, people will ask you, how did it happen? And you will say, I relied on God. They will say, when did it change? And you will say, overnight. They will say, what did you do differently? And you will say, I stopped trusting myself and started trusting God. May your faith rise above your fear. May your trust silence your doubts. May your reliance on God open doors you never imagined. And may you experience the power of a God who can change everything, not gradually, not slowly, but overnight. One touch from God can rewrite years of struggle. Many people misunderstand how God works because they measure His power by time. They think because they have suffered long, the solution must also take long. They believe because the pain lasted for years, the healing must come slowly. But God is not controlled by duration. He is not limited by history. What took years to break, you can take one moment for God to restore. One touch from God does not negotiate with your past. It overrides it. There are struggles that did not start yesterday. Some began in childhood, passed through seasons, followed you into adulthood, and shaped your thinking. You learned to live with them. You learned to manage the pain, to smile with wounds, to normalize suffering. You adjusted your dreams to fit your limitations. You lowered expectations because disappointment became familiar. But God never intended struggle to become your identity. It was meant to be a chapter, not the whole story. When God touches a life, He does not just change circumstances. He changes direction. He does not only repair what is broken. He redefines what is possible. A single touch from God can do what education could not do, what experience could not do, what connections could not do, what effort could not do. That touch carries authority over time, memory, shame, delay, and failure. Many people are tired because they are trying to fix spiritually rooted problems with physical effort. They push harder, work longer, think deeper, plan better, yet nothing changes. Not every battle responds to strategy. Some battles respond only to surrender. Some chains are not broken by strength, but by touch. God's touch goes deeper than motivation. It reaches the root. Years of struggle can train the mind to expect disappointment. You pray, but you already assume nothing will happen. You who hope but cautiously, you believe but with conditions. This is what prolonged struggle does. It shrinks faith. But one touch from God can restore faith instantly. It can remind your spirit that God is still God, that He has not forgotten you, that your situation has not exhausted His power. There are people who have struggled silently, publicly strong, privately exhausted. You carried responsibilities that were too heavy. You became the one everyone depended on, but no one checked on. You learn to survive without complaining. But survival is not the same as living. God's touch does not just help you cope, it brings you back to life. When God touches a person, He touches their perception. Suddenly, what looked permanent looks temporary. What looked impossible looks small. What looked dead begins to breathe again. The situation may not change immediately, but something inside you shifts. Fear loosens its grip. Hope rises quietly. Strength returns without explanation. Some struggles come from repeated failure. You tried, failed, tried again, failed again. Over time, failure became familiar. You stopped starting because you were tired of finishing disappointed. But God's touch does not consult your record. He is not intimidated by how many times you fail. He specializes in restoring confidence to people who lost belief in themselves. There are struggles rooted in rejection, being overlooked, being abandoned, being chosen last, being told you are not enough. These words stayed with you longer than you expected. They shaped how you see yourself, how you approach opportunities, how you relate to people. One touch from God can silence voices that have spoken for years. When God speaks, every other voice loses authority. Some struggles are spiritual battles disguised as normal life issues. Constant heaviness, unexplainable discouragement, cycles that repeat without reason, patterns you cannot break. These are not solved by advice alone. They require divine intervention. When God touches a life, chains break quietly, but completely. God's touch is not noisy. It does not always announce itself. Sometimes it happens in stillness. Sometimes in weakness. Sometimes when you are not even asking anymore. That is the mystery of grace. God can touch a person who has lost words, who no longer knows how to pray, who is tired of explaining pain. He understands silence. Years of struggle can distort your view of God. You begin to see Him as distant, slow, or selective. You wonder why others testify while you wait. But one touch from God corrects understanding. It reminds you that God was never against you. He was preparing you. He was preserving you. He was keeping you until the right moment. God's touch does not come because you earned it. It comes because He is merciful. Many people think breakthrough comes when they become perfect, stronger, more faithful. But God often touches people when they are empty, when pride is gone, when explanations are exhausted, when dependence is pure. One touch from God can heal wounds that therapy could not reach. Emotional wounds buried so deep you forgot they were there. Pain you normalized. Trauma you laughed through. God's touch reaches places words cannot access. He heals without reopening wounds. He restores without reliving pain. Years of struggle can make you defensive. You protect yourself because you have been hurt. You keep distance because closeness once cost you deeply. But God's touch restores trust. Not careless trust, but secure trust. Trust rooted in identity, not desperation. Some people struggle with delay. You know what God promised, but time passed. Others moved ahead. You stayed behind. Delay can feel like denial. It can make you question whether you heard God correctly. One touch from God can realign timing. Suddenly, years of waiting make sense. Suddenly, the delay becomes preparation. God's touch can rewrite history. Not by erasing it, but by redeeming it. The pain becomes purpose. The delay becomes depth. The struggle becomes strength. You do not forget what you went through, but it no longer controls you. It no longer defines you. There are people whose struggle is internal. No one sees it. You function well. You perform. You achieve. But inside, there is emptiness. Achievement did not heal you. Success did not satisfy you. God's touch restores wholeness. Not by adding more, but by filling what was missing. When God touches a life, He does not just lift the person. He changes their environment. Relationships shift. Opportunities appear. Resistance weakens. Favor begins to speak. Not because people changed, but because God adjusted the atmosphere. Years of struggle can teach you to expect the worst. Even good news feels temporary. You wait for something to go wrong. But God's touch brings rest. Real rest. Rest that does not depend on circumstances. Rest that anchors you. Some struggles come from carrying guilt. mistakes you regret, choices you wish you could undo. You moved on externally, but internally you remained stuck. God's touch brings forgiveness that feels real, release that feels complete, freedom that does not accuse you tomorrow. One touch from God can restore vision. You stop dreaming because disappointment felt safer. You stopped expecting because hope hurt too much. God reignites vision gently, not all at once, but enough to move again. Years of struggle can make you impatient or numb. You react quickly or not at all, but God's touch restores balance. You feel again without being overwhelmed. You respond without panic. God's touch also restores dignity. Struggle can make you feel less than others. It can make you feel behind, ashamed, invisible. God does not just lift you, He honors you. He restores what struggle tried to steal. Some struggles are inherited, patterns passed down, cycles repeated, limitations accepted as normal. One touch from God can break generational patterns. It can end cycles that lasted longer than your lifetime. When God touches a person, it often looks simple from the outside, but inside everything changes. Confidence returns, direction becomes clear, strength rises without explanation. Years of struggle can train you to rely on yourself. You learn not to expect help. You became independent because dependence disappointed you. But God's touch teaches healthy dependence, trust without fear. God does not need years to undo years. He only needs access. Access to your heart, access to your trust, access to your surrender. One touch from God can restore joy that vanished quietly. Not excitement, but deep joy. Joy that does not shout, but stays. Some struggles made you question your worth. You wondered if you were overlooked by God. His touch answers that question without words. When God touches a life, the past loses its power to intimidate the future. You remember, but you are no longer trapped. Years of struggle may have taught you endurance. God's touch adds ease, not lazy ease, but divine flow. God's touch does not make life perfect, but it makes it purposeful. It gives clarity. It gives peace. One touch from God can awaken gratitude where bitterness lived, expectation where resignation lived, faith where doubt lived. Years of struggle do not disqualify you. They position you for a testimony. God's touch often comes when you stop striving and start trusting. It comes when your hands are open, not clenched. It comes when your heart is honest, not impressive. It comes when you are tired enough to stop pretending. One touch from God can rewrite years of struggle because God is not entering the struggle. He is overruling it. He is not negotiating with the past. He is establishing a new order. He is not asking permission from pain. He is asserting authority. He is not limited by what happened. He is empowered by who He is. And when that touch comes, what defined you quietly releases you. What followed you stops following you. What delayed you loses relevance. What broke you no longer controls you. What tired you no longer drains you. What confused you no longer speaks louder than truth. What wounded you no longer shapes your identity. What lasted long suddenly feels light. What seemed permanent suddenly looks temporary. What felt impossible suddenly feels within reach. One touch from God can rewrite years of struggle.